Well, we're here with Diana Smith, who's the president of the Valemount Curling Club, and Korie Marshall, who's the chair of the steering committee for the Curling Club, to discuss the upcoming Assent vote that will decide basically the future of the Valemount Curling Club. On September 30th, voters are going to be asked if they are in favor of establishing a taxable service that will provide funding to replace the Curling Club's 60-year-old or so ice plant, make building repairs and improvements to bring the facility up to code, and also to provide annual operating funds to the Curling Club. So, Korie, first we'll start with you. It's a little complex. I wonder if you could kind of simplify it, distill down what you're trying to do so that people can understand it without having to read through pages and pages.
Yeah, well, we started working with the regional district about 3 years ago. Our original idea was to connect the ice plant to the ice plant next door in the skating rink. We had heard at some point that that was a potential possibility, and we know that our ice plant is our biggest concern. We have some other issues with the building. It was well built for the time, but obviously it needs some upgrades now because of the changes to the building code. But it was the ice plant was really our biggest concern. Expensive to run, it's inefficient, really old, and the parts need to be potentially be manufactured, or if it breaks down, we might not even be able to run it again. So we went to the regional district, worked with staff at the regional district and at the village for about 3 years now, developing. We did a feasibility study looking at a few options, and we've realized that the best option is to go to the community and say, you know, do you want to help us save this building? If we can get the service set up, if the voters agree with us, then we want to keep running this building as we have been. We've been doing a lot of volunteer work, and we want, not just for curling, we want it available to the entire community. We have lots of programs that we've been starting to partner with other organizations, getting them inside this building and making it a usable space, and we know that's at a premium in the community. So.
Well, let's talk about making it a taxable service. I think a lot of people may be a little confused about that. What does it mean, first of all, just as a concept, and secondly, what does it mean to people's actual taxes? Right,
so the way the regional district works is that they come up with, or we come up with a proposal, work with staff to look at costs, and then go to the voters and say, do you want to participate in this service? We pick an area, so we've picked one that's essentially the same as the existing skating rink. And basically it does mean that the regional district would collect property taxes from all of those properties, and then that money goes directly towards the certain service. And in this case, the service would be the payback money for the loans and stuff we need to improve the building, and then the amount of money that we'll get each year to continue operating. So for all of our, like, you know, oil and heat and electricity and taxes to the village, all of those sorts of things.
Right. So there's different rates set up in terms of the taxable rates for homeowners versus business owners. Can you lay out what those are?
Yeah, so it works out to, it'll be $13.40 per 100,000 of residential property tax. So the different classes, I think the business one would be, I think it's $38.62 or something like that. So the different types of property get taxed a different amount, but for residential, it would mean $13.40 a year if your house is valued at $100,000.
Okay, and so there are already many taxable services in the region. Valemount Entertainment Society, which operates VCTV and also does all the broadcasting of the different television and radio channels, stations. The hospital, the schools, the arena next door. Am I missing anything?
I think the library. I think the fire hall. Yeah. I think that's, and also, well, you would also get on your taxes the schools and the police, all those things, and they all come with taxes as well, yeah.
Right. So, you know, no one likes to pay taxes, of course, and one of the main things is for people, I don't use the curling rink, why should I have to pay taxes on it? So what would you say to that comment?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of services that are available. Even if we don't use them, we know that they're valuable to our community, to others in our community, and that they're there in case we need them. And one example is, you know, the Northern Health Connections bus. Part of our taxes goes towards that service because there wasn't a very reliable service of busing around here for certain medical appointments. So that's an example of our taxes going towards a service that I've never been on, the Northern Health Connections bus, but I appreciate it's there. And I don't mind my taxes going towards that. So and it comes down to choice, do you believe in this service being available to the rest of your community, even if you don't use it?
Right, so it's really a quality of life thing, right? I don't have children in schools, but I pay for the schools. I don't use the clinic very often, but I pay for that. So,
Yeah,
but we want those things as residents to be available to us or to others who are going to use those facilities. It makes for a nicer community.
Exactly, and not just thinking about what I need, but what my community needs.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the other comments while we're on this. That people have been making on social media and in the newspapers and letters to the editor, etc. One of the comments you hear is that the rink is only used from October to March approximately, and it's left pretty much empty throughout the rest of the year. What about that, Diana? What would you say to that comment?
I think for us, we really need to be looking into the future at the moment. The community is growing. The last time I was discussing this with Korie last night, the last time that Kinder Morgan was here, we had 6 extra teams all of a sudden that come and utilize the curling club because they are in the community. We're looking at the ski hill coming in the future also. So the town is about to grow. Back in the day when the mill was running here, there was 30 teams to a bonspiel. There was 16 teams on it a night because the community was thriving. So I think that if we're looking not at just this moment, I think we need to look at the future of where our community is going at the moment. There is so much potential for this place. We could use the whole area out here. Volleyball, racquetball, any of those sports could be run through the summer and the other months. So I think if we can get past the tax portion of it, for us it is a struggle. So I think we would be able to stay open longer. Your October we would be in and running all the way through to March because we wouldn't have that worry of cost all the time. So that's what the taxable service would do for the club itself. And then it also, like I said, opens it up again to so many more possibilities and usage for the community.
Like the trade show.
Yeah, the trade show. There's been, like I said, large funerals, the food bank. I would like to see, if we can get there, a food program for the school, because they don't have a cafeteria next door and we are situated in a perfect area. So there, if we had enough volunteers and things going on, that could be a program introduced. There is so much potential to this building as long as it stays open.
Right, and that's the key. And I think a lot of people look at this and they say, well, we're just supporting a club and their expenses are too high and their memberships are not enough, etc. But if you go through the financials and you look at the numbers, the operating costs for this facility are $40,800, of which I calculated over $22,000 is either electricity or propane or municipal utilities, etc. Mm-hmm. So this facility is run exclusively by volunteers. There's not a paid person here, and you have a very low operating cost, and the main stumbling block that you have, and even with that, you've been able to stay open all these years, right? I mean, if you only have a few members and you obviously have those costs, so you've been able to cover them for all these years. You have a 60-year-old ice plant that's going to cost, according to the regional district, $125,000 to replace. Well, no community organization could come up with that kind of money for any type of facility. So really, it's a low operating cost, a facility that's run by volunteers now and it's going to continue to be run by volunteers. So I guess it's a strange question, and people keep saying it. It's a membership organization. The membership should sustain it. But if you do the math, on $40,800 a year operating costs, how many members would you actually need to keep the memberships under $1,000 or $2,000 a year?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And the reality too, because we have people that are passionate about curling, but they're also passionate about the community. So they do a lot of volunteer time. And our rates right now are low for members, and we've kept them low because we want it to be available to those who can't afford things like hockey or golf, because those are fairly expensive things, and we want to give people a chance to come out and do some physical activity, some social activity.
And this was one of my biggest arguments when we first kind of started discussing with Regional District, is that I didn't want the memberships to go high, because it is a different demographic. We're not the golfing crew, and I've kind of been looking at age demographics. If you look at, those are, the 40 to the 70-year-olds that are, getting to retirement. Their families are already grown and left home, so they have that extra income. Where if you look at the club members here, they're all family orientated. So they have the younger children. They have kids in other sports and things like that. So for me, it was really important to keep the fees low, to have it open for the children and the youth. My junior program, they pay $30 to be able to come out and curl. They need a jacket and they need shoes. That's all they need. We supply brooms, everything else. Then we have the high schoolers coming in, and they come and go as they please. We give them a key, and their whole, winter program is based around the curling club also. So, and that's part of the problem too, is that we had to get back to this demographic, because when I was a child, we weren't allowed to curl. So it was like this huge controversy when I was 12, 13, trying to get out on the ice here, because it was an elite group. And now that elite group are all in retirement years. So they're not here anymore. They're bum shoulders, broken hips, that kind of stuff. So now we're at this point where we're trying to recruit new, and that's what we're starting to see slowly here.
And I think, again, a lot of people really don't understand the value that a facility like this provides. So, and I don't know if you guys have even put a number on it, what it means to give free access to the high school to use the facility whenever they want, to allow community groups to come in and at little or no cost, to house the food bank at no cost. I mean, those are, if you were to put dollar figures on them, those are thousands of dollars. And the heartless people out there might say, well, charge them all.
And we've
if you
heard that lots.
Yeah, if you charge them all, perhaps they don't come anymore, or they have to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a catch-22. Sure, yeah, okay, raise your membership rates up to $500 a member. Well, with 30 members, that's still only $15,000. That's less than half your operating cost, and you may lose a lot of members by doing that, right?
And you don't even see that in the city. I was just discussing this with my brother, because he lives in Victoria, and I said, $700 for a membership, and he's like, Diana, I live in Victoria and I don't even pay. He's like, that is astronomical to even ask. He said, their whole team is about what we pay, $400 for their team to curl for the whole season, and this is Victoria. So to ask that of a small community where you're looking at jobs that are, maybe $20 per hour at a good paying job, that it doesn't work. It doesn't calculate.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this situation here where you've got a facility, you've got a village on the cusp of perhaps, increased residency through the ski area, through other developments that are happening in the village, and the choice is pay a few dollars a year to keep it open with that on the horizon, or shut it down, and that's really the option. It's either one or the other here, right? We're not talking about, there's the third option that nobody's discussed, right?
No, exactly. We spent the last 3 years working very hard with the regional district to look at the possibilities. And we've looked at other options, like the village taking it over. Well, that would mean tax dollars too. And, any other option, I don't know. Selling, who's going to buy a curling club that you have to get a lease from the village? Does anybody want to? Well, nobody's suggested that. So, and then we wouldn't have the opportunity to run it and make it available to the community. We wouldn't be able to offer it to the high school for free. We wouldn't be able to, open the doors to these programs from Kinnicknickers and from Columbia Basin Regional Alliance for Literacy the potentially to the elementary school. Like, we wouldn't be able to do that if we sold this, if we could sell it. It wouldn't be a community asset. So
Right, so it's a taxable service option, or it has to close because you just can't afford to replace the ice plant, and that's the big thing.
Exactly.
And even the maintenance, like if you look at, the $40,000 budget, how many clubs in the community are making $40,000 through their revenues? Or, that's a lot of volunteer. It's a lot of money that you're asking from the community members, to be spending and doing in your club. I know
On
that
top
it's
of all
kind
the
of been brought up
volunteers.
about the us having a liquor license. Well, that's how we pay. So I just wanted to kind of bring this up too. CBT used to host, it was called Enterprising Nonprofits. And it brought up the Valemount Curling Club actually in their presentation all across BC. And the reason they did that is because we are a perfect example of how we use our liquor license to pay for everything in our club. So it all goes back to the club, and that's how we were able to sustain for such a long time the money that you are discussing with us. If we didn't have those liquor sales, it would have been shut 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on to the other question is, why doesn't the regional district take this over? If in fact the recommended option that they're talking about calls for you to donate or to give or to sell to the regional district the facility, which is valued at $1.4 million. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I don't think people understand this facility was built by volunteers with grant money and volunteer blood, sweat, and tears to do that. And it's valued, assessed at $1.4 million. So you would turn this facility over to the regional district somehow. The village would give or sell, or however it works, the land underneath it to the regional district. They would own the facility. Why doesn't then the regional district just take over the whole property and lease you the ice and allow you to operate the facility?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. I mean, that's one of the options we looked at too, is that the regional district would run and operate it. First off, would be far more expensive. Regional district staff, rules, policies that they have in place. It'd be more expensive for monitoring the systems, and it would essentially be far less flexible for us. We wouldn't be able to get in here when we wanted to. Right now, because we're volunteers, we can open up this building whenever we see the need. If regional district takes it over, we have to make a call to them, and if it's overtime or if it's past their working hours, tough luck, would be out. So. Yeah, two main reasons. We wanted to still be able to operate this facility. We've been doing a lot of work to keep it open, and we want to continue doing that work. We just needed the funding to help pay those bills, because we want to keep it open for the community.
And the regional district is not going to operate it for free. They don't lose money on their facilities. They have to at least break even on them. The arena next door is a prime example. Unionized staff in there, very high operating costs for that facility. If the regional district was to come in and take it over, they would have the say as to who can come in, when they can use it, what fees they would pay. I'm certain they're not going to be, giving away space because they want to, offset their operating costs, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of a community service that you're offering, or that you're trying to keep offering here. In addition to in addition to that, it must be kind of hard for the people who built the facility in the heyday of Valemount, in the times when there was more than 2,000 people living here, and as you said, there was 30 teams curling on a regular basis. To see it come to this, that you have to give your building away, your $1.4 million building away, to keep operating.
I think just kind of from discussions that I've had, a lot of them are still in support of it though, because if it's voted yes, we're not losing the service. So essentially, we still get to curl, we still get to, provide it to the community. So I think a lot of them have thought, what, it is a loss if you want to look at it that way, but we're also gaining. It's been a struggle for a lot of years for this curling club. Even, regional district has been a great support through all of this. They pay for our insurance every year, through a grant and aid. So without those people and that support, it wouldn't be happening already. You know, we probably would have had to close the doors 5 years ago.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to make sure, you know, if this does go through, if the vote is, service is approved, we are planning to turn ownership of the building over. The club won't get paid for that, but we are going to be making sure we have a very long-term agreement to keep running it. Regional District had originally suggested something like 5 years, and we said, no way. It's going to be 20 to 30 years because we want to make sure that we have the option. And as members of a society, that's what it's our society was set up for. We have to ensure that, you know, if we're letting a very valuable asset go, we have to make sure that we're still going to have access to it.
Right. So one thing that I don't understand, and maybe other people join me in this, is if under the plan the regional district would own the building and own the land here, why would the curling club still have to pay property taxes if they don't own the building and they don't own the land?
Yeah, and it's a strange thing, and I don't understand it. It seems like a very cyclic kind of, our money is just going to the regional district and they're giving it back to us. I don't know, but apparently the Property Assessment Authority for the province has been looking a lot at buildings that are not used for essentially what it maybe looks like they're used for, and they're getting more strict on that. And probably the realization a couple of years ago that this building existed, and that's when we started getting taxed, was one of the first steps there. They're looking at, for a regional district to own a building, if they're not running it as a service, then they're going to be taxed on it. And I think it makes sense in some ways because it's a fairer way to spread out the tax burden. They're also potentially looking at, you know, like churches have had tax exemption for a very long time. They're starting to say that, okay, if a church owns the property next to it and they're renting it out, well, they don't get a tax exemption on the property next door. So it's something that's changing, and it doesn't maybe not make a whole lot of sense at the moment, but that's what we're planning for. We have to plan to pay the village property taxes.
Let's talk about the facility. So probably the number one comment is the one I started with, and that is the facility is empty a lot of the time. What concrete plans, like what have you got on the books that you can say to people, look, we understand that and we're trying to extend our season from October to March to year-round, or as close to year-round as you can get. What can you kind of look at people and say, hey, we have a plan and here's our plan and here's what we want to do to get more people in this facility, rather than just saying, well, it's available for people to do. You know, you kind of need to get somewhat aggressive about going out there and bringing that business in, at least to start with, and then once other people say, oh, it's a big, you know, rectangular building, I could use it for this or this or this or this. So what plans do you have right now?
I don't think it's something that we've sort of consciously gone out to say, okay, we want to market this. It's not like a marketing plan that the rental of the building is intended to be a moneymaker for us. That's not how we've been operating. It's just because we think this is a valuable facility and because we are connected to other organizations. And we want to make sure that people come in and see the building and know that it's available and know how to reach us. We're not trying to outcompete other organizations, either profit or nonprofit, but the reality is there's very few public spaces, community spaces in Valemount at the moment, and they're getting snapped up, really. We know Kinnickers is moving into the Lions Club. Roslyn Valley Support Society is renting the bottom floor of the old Community Services building. We know the college and the Learning Center are looking at the upstairs of that building. We know the daycare needs more space because they have a wait list and they need more space to address more of the kids. We know there's more kids coming to the community. So yeah, it's not like we're actively looking to say, hey, we want to rent this out. We just want to be available for other organizations that are, say, hey, we need a space to do something. Well, we've got a space.
I understand that, and I can see the validity of that, but I think taxpayers now are getting a little bit hardened, let's say, or harder, and saying, you know what, I want you to do that. I want you to go out there and compete. Maybe not head to head with every business, but at least to have a facility that is unique in its size for sure, and its potential for layouts and things of that nature. So I would kind of say, and from some of the comments I've heard from people, is look, you need to kind of get out there and sell this facility, right?
And that's kind of a catch-22, because I've heard a lot of that said, but in the same, then they say that they don't want us to steal business from other groups. You know, we don't open on Friday Burger Night because that's the Legion. When the Lions Hall was running dances, they knew that we did October. They did New Year's. You know, they were just written laws that weren't really spoke about. So it is kind of a catch-22. You know, they want us to be renting and utilizing, but not stealing from anyone else.
Yeah, I hear you, but the main difference is now they're paying taxes. And whenever people have to start putting money out of their own pocket, they go, hey, we should get something back for that. Somebody should be bringing dollars into the facility to offset, to at least break even, right? I don't think anybody's expecting you to turn a profit. I mean, you're a nonprofit society anyway, but I think that a lot of people look at it and go, well, you know, it needs to be somewhat self-sustaining, and I think that people have to understand that, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, and it all just can't be taxable or grants or whatever.
Yeah.
There does have to be some sort of a, it's a fine line, granted, but I think from what I'm hearing from people is maybe they're at that line now and they're saying, yeah, okay, I understand that, you know, this hotel has a banquet room here that, you know, is a big one and you don't want to take business away from it. But by the same token, my tax dollars are now going into this facility and I'm basically an owner now, right? And I want to see some return on my tax investment. You know, that's a hard, like I said, it's a hard way for people to look at a facility like this, but I think it's getting to that point now in society.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we've thought about those things too, but the reality is right now our volunteers are pretty burnt out. So if we can get to a point where we start, you know we have the money to pay the bills to run the building, then we get through a season and we're not so stressed out, and we're going to start looking at those other things. And maybe eventually we can hire a part-time person that can help manage some of those things and help organize those connections, and help with advertising, help with, you know, building those relationships with, say, Knickers or with the school and sort of thing. Like, you know, if we want to run a cooking program for the kids, we need volunteers to do that. Well, right now our volunteers are burnt out doing everything else that they're doing. So, yeah, I mean, which comes first? Right now, we just need a little bit of secured funding so we can get through the first year. And then we're gonna, you know, then we're really gonna be able to sit down and say, okay, now what's our next steps? How do we continue to maintain this? How do we keep the amount we're asking from, because we have to submit a budget every year to the regional district, the same as I'm sure VCTV and the Entertainment Center Society. We have to submit a budget every year. We have to prove that budget. So there's going to be some different work that we have to do each year. And yeah, I'm sure we have the ability to get there if we get some secured funding for the first little while, just to get us through that and get our ice plant replaced.
I want to ask this question, and I think it's important, is why is Valemount a better community by having this facility?
There's so many reasons. You know, the last couple of years, I'm not a big curler, but I got involved in the curling club. I came to a couple of the dances, and they're just so fun. And somebody said the other night, it's like a big kitchen party. And that's, you know, you see a side of your community that you don't see at the grocery store or the coffee shop. You get to meet more people. There's new people that are either learning to curl or are moving here, and they're curlers and they're coming. So it's a great way to meet, you know, members of your community that maybe you don't know. And I think that's been the biggest thing about, you know, why I've gotten passionate about saving this building, really, because yeah.
For me, I have a little bit more, I see a lot of leadership skills coming out of here. The kids that are starting here, they're learning about what it takes to volunteer. because this building is based on volunteers, they're getting the concept of, you know what, sometimes in life you have to do things for your community and not be paid for them. So they're learning that, you know what, sometimes in your community you have to give. You know, you don't get to sit there and be paid for every little thing that you do. That some stuff has to run that way. You know, if you look at Valemount, there are a ton of nonprofits, you know, with huge boards behind them that are putting in countless hours that people really don't understand. And I've seen this even talking, you know, over at the arena, because my daughter does play hockey also, that they didn't understand that what do you mean you install the ice? And I'm like, well, we all sit here and take turns and, you know, we put the ribbons, and they just, even the adults didn't understand that concept because regional district has always done it. So then well, what else do you do? Well, we clean the building, we maintain it, we do all the maintenance. You know, people don't understand the hours that are put in to keep this building running. So then we have, you know, the older youth that are teaching the younger youth in my program of how to curl. Then they come out into a bonspiel and they're mingling with the adults. Now there's no fear anymore because you know what? There's no fear to talk to a 40-year-old, you know? So they're learning the leadership part of it. They call out their teams. You know, they get to come out and curl. They're having a great time. They get, you know, fed. They're helping cleaning around here. They're getting a lot of life skills that you don't get by just showing up and having something handed to you, essentially. And I think it's really important.
So bottom line, if the voters vote no on this Assent vote later in the month, what happens to the facility?
Essentially, it is closing.
Yeah, because we don't have enough money to run anything. We're scared to turn our power plant or our ice plant on because we don't have enough money for that first power bill. So if they say yes, we're going to do everything we can over the next 3-4 months to make sure we get this season in and get to the point where the service is set up, get the new ice plant installed, get all the repairs done to the village, which we have secured some grants towards. We haven't started doing a lot of them because we have to pool them, the funding for them with the funding that we'll get from the regional district. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of work for this winter, and we're committed to doing that. But if the vote is no, then we'll have to just lock the building and probably give the keys back to the village.
So what you're saying is that a $1.4 million building built by volunteers and run by volunteers for, over 25 years now, is basically an empty shell that nobody has and nobody wants.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's pretty sad. Right. Yeah. Let's talk about the Assent vote and the details of it. Could you give people the details on when the voting is and where and what times?
Yeah, so the main voting day is September 30th and the advance voting day is September 20th. Voting is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the community hall here or the Tijon Community Hall.
And there was also, I believe, something on the regional district website about if you can't make either of those votes, you can mail in your ballot. Do you know the details on that?
I think that you have to contact the regional district and register for that. There's an email address, I think, for Carla Jensen. Carla Jensen's the elections officer. Yeah, so people can do that. They have to contact the regional district for that information. Yeah.
Anything I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about that you want to add?
Please support it. I've been very passionate, and it's been in, our family for a very long time. And I would really, it would make me very sad to see this go. It's only going to grow, and we'll see that with the community and the changes within it. And I think that we need to look, past this moment of what is exactly happening at this moment and look to the future, and the potential and everything that comes with it. I mean, like Korie said, the volunteer burnout, you kind of get to a stage. As new people come, you end up with more volunteers. They have new ideas. you know, you get to grow from there. So I just hope that the community supports this for the whole $13, you know, per 100,000 that it is going to cost them. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and I think just, you know, it's important to envision not just the community as it is right now, but how you want to see your community in the future. And I don't want to see a community that loses this.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and best of luck with the vote. I hope everything goes well. And if people have more questions, who should they contact?
Yeah, they can contact either of us. We're both on Facebook. I can give you our phone numbers, 3762.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and again, best of luck.
Thank you.